Dr. Lyle H. Rossiter, M.D., is a board-certified clinical psychiatrist. For more than 40 years, Dr. Rossiter has diagnosed and treated over 1,500 patients. He has also examined more than 2,700 civil and criminal cases, both state and federal, as a board-certified forensic psychiatrist retained by numerous public offices, courts, and private attorneys. He received his medical and psychiatric training at the University of Chicago. Dr. Rossiter is now making a powerful case in writing that the hope and change ideology motivating the leftist and their progressive agenda is actually a mental disorder by clinical diagnosis. Dr. Rossiter has published his findings in his latest book entitled The Liberal Mind, The Psychological Causes of Political Madness. You can purchase his book at the live link below this film. Dr. Rossiter explains with great clarity why the kind of liberalism being displayed by today's progressives can only be understood as a psychological disorder. Dr. Rossiter says, quote, "Based on strikingly irrational beliefs and emotions, modern liberals relentlessly undermine the most important principles on which our freedoms were founded. Like spoiled, angry children, they rebel against the normal responsibilities of adulthood and demand that a parental government meet their needs from cradle to grave." Dr. Rossiter goes on to say, "A social scientist who understands human nature will not dismiss the vital roles of free choice, voluntary cooperation, and moral integrity, as liberals dismiss them," he says. "A political leader who understands human nature will not ignore individual differences in talent, drive, personal appeal, and work ethic, and then try to impose economic and social equality on the population, as liberals do." Dr. Rossiter goes on to say, "And a legislator who understands human nature will not create an environment of rules which overregulates and overtaxes the nation's citizens, corrupts their character, and reduces them to wards of the state, as liberals do." Dr. Rossiter goes on to say that the liberal agenda preys on weakness and feelings of inferiority in the population by creating and reinforcing perceptions of victimization, by satisfying infantile claims to entitlement, indulgence, and compensation, by augmenting primitive feelings of envy, and by rejecting the sovereignty of the individual, subordinating him to the will of the government. Dr. Rossiter says, "The roots of liberalism and its associated madness can be clearly identified by understanding how children develop from infancy to adulthood and how distorted development produces the irrational beliefs of the liberal mind." He says, "When the modern liberal mind whines about imaginary victims, rages against imaginary villains, and seeks above all else to run the lives of persons competent to run their own lives, the neurosis of the liberal mind becomes painfully obvious." Thanks to Dr. Lyle Rossiter and his latest book, we now have professional proof of what we knew by common sense and observation all along. Leftists are actually and clinically mentally ill.